We're like, this is insane projection. And also it almost feels like your therapist is like in love with you.
No, huge red flag.
Like in order to go to therapy, you have to be in like some big crisis or like something has to be like so wrong with you. And that's just not true.
Also, no, this is not shade to anybody, but that's crazy if someone is like, well, have you thought about trying an open relationship?
Welcome back to another episode of Sessions for the Soul.
Yes, so welcome back. How are you today?
I'm doing good. It's a cozy April day, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh, how bipolar the weather is in springtime here.
Yeah.
Is crazy.
Yeah. There was supposed to be like thunder and lightning today when I checked last night. I feel like last time we recorded, like the last batch we recorded, it was like a beautiful day and I was just I felt so much more alive.
Yeah. No, I know this weather definitely encourages the like hibernation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But we're making it through.
We're making it through. Yeah, absolutely. It's just like remembering that like all of this rain is so good and it's going to feed the summer.
Yeah.
The flowers.
That's why things are so green and so beautiful. I do have to remind myself of that often.
Yeah. The spring almost feels more like intense weather-wise than like the winter did this year.
Yeah.
And so, no, I get it. I get it so much. It's like, wait, what? And the thing that's crazy about it is 1 minute it's hailing, 1 minute it's sunny, 1 minute it's pouring, the next minute it's like, you're like, what is happening?
We just have to be flexible around here.
Very adaptable energy. Yeah. That is hilarious. Yeah.
I love it. Should we talk about merch real quick before we dive into the episode?
Yes, we should talk about merch. I love it.
I feel like it's been, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, we wore like our little sample merch for an episode, and we've just been busy kind of refining things, ordering a few more samples, opening it up to family just to, test the whole system out. And so by the time this episode comes out, it should be live for everyone.
I mean, I really think it will be. So yeah, we can just
check our socials.
Yeah. Look in the show notes for a link. And check our socials. It's actually really exciting and really cool. Like every piece we've gotten back, with the exception of like one where we've had to like rework a couple of things a few times, like has been so exciting.
Yeah.
And they look really good.
Yes.
I'm proud of us.
Me too. It was so fun to like choose the designs and our little like slogan, I guess. Healing looks good on you. Like it's so cute. I love it.
Me too. I'm so excited. And I think all of our listeners are going to love it.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it on you guys and to like tag us in any like social media posts you make so we could share it. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to like see it out in the wild.
Yes. And honestly, they are really cute. Like everything we've ordered, I will say, like there was a couple things so far. We've, I think, got 6 products just between the two of us. And like, I would order something and be like, oh, yes, I love this. But like what you ordered too, I'd be like, okay, and I want that.
Yes, so exactly. Yeah.
It's just like, well, I'm going to have like a whole section of my closet dedicated to our merch.
A whole collection, a whole podcast collection.
Yeah. But seriously, like this, I have a couple favorites and maybe like,
me too. Yeah.
Should we like tell them our favorites?
Maybe.
Okay. What's your favorite?
The most recent thing I ordered and I shared on social media is the little snake crew neck. And we're going to have it in a hoodie style too, which is exciting. But I love it. I love the design. I feel like the feedback we've gotten, like people love that one.
Yeah.
That's my favorite so far, I think.
I think that's my favorite too.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And which is crazy because when we were like building these, I feel like we both at different times were like, the snake is kind of fun and cool. But we were like, we opened up the feedback to our family and we got a lot of snake votes and we were like, okay.
Yeah.
And seeing it in person, I'm like, wait, I love that.
I think it exceeded expectations.
I think so.
Yeah.
And it's like cool and cute and I love the like brown color. It just looks really natural.
Yes.
And that's my favorite, I think. And then my second favorite is the crop tee. The Healing Looks Good on You crop tee. I love it.
Yes.
I can't wait to have it.
And that's in a tote bag too, which is fun if you don't want to wear it on your body as a
Yeah.
shirt.
And we have lots of stuff that is like great for like unisex. Like hey fellas, if we have any like guys listening, or if your husbands want to support the show, or your
Yeah.
boyfriends, or my nephew reached out and was like, I need this.
I love that so
And it
much.
was honestly hilarious. I told you about it, but
Mhm.
um yeah, so we have like a lot of stuff that I think works for anybody and everybody, and we're
Yeah.
just excited to be taking this step and inviting you guys into it.
Yes. So very exciting.
Yes.
Yay. Well, we don't have an I said what I said today.
No.
We'll just skip right over that one. But a few episodes ago we talked about, like, we briefly mentioned during an episode, I don't even remember what episode it
Yeah, me
was, but
either.
we were like, oh, we should do a whole episode on therapy, like how to find a good therapist. And
Yeah.
so we wanted to touch base on that because I think we've both been to therapy on and off throughout our lives, starting in adolescence. And
Yeah.
so we have lived experience of what it's like. And then talking with people, I'm sure you've had experiences like this too, where people who have never been to therapy before are really like apprehensive to do it because it feels scary, it feels unfamiliar, it's like a new process, you don't know what to expect, you don't even know how to find a therapist maybe sometimes. And so we just want to kind of dive into all of those topics of like, how do you find a therapist? How do you find a good therapist? What are some like red flags maybe?
Yes.
And just all the little details. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is like, when we were talking about this, we both were in agreement that like this is actually a great thing to do, because I think there's so much information out in the world about like you can get on the internet and it can tell you like all these things about finding a therapist or what to do, or now we have like apps with therapists, which is like a whole
yeah.
other discussion.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about it today, I'm sure, but I think like knowing and trusting the process is like the first part of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be it could be a process, it could not be a process, but it also
Yeah.
could be a process. And just staying committed to like finding the right person is being
Yeah.
open to that is, I think, one of the most important like parts of like going on the journey of getting a therapist. Because if you're wanting it to work out right away and you're not like committed to maybe having to like, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like dating, like if in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that like you might have to shop around for a second
Yeah.
if you don't click with the person,
Mm-hmm.
um and trusting that that's okay,
Yeah.
and it might take a little bit of time,
Yeah.
but you will find the right person. That's like something that I just wish more people knew or were
Yeah,
aware
I
of.
think that's so important for people to know because literally, and I think this research still stands today, like
Mm-hmm.
um, the most effective part of therapy, or what is it? The most, like determining the best outcomes of therapy is
Yeah.
based on the rapport or connection that you have between client and therapist. And so you want to make sure that you actually feel connected with your therapist. Like, oh, I actually, like, we click. I like this person, like as a person, I like how they present or how they engage with me. I feel comfortable in their office or online. Maybe we could talk about telehealth. You want to make sure that you feel good about that. And maybe it takes like a couple sessions because maybe you're kind of slow to warm up to people, or
Totally.
just like figuring out a good like groove together. But if you're not clicking with them, yeah, there's no harm. And your therapist should not, take it personally at all either. That would be a red flag if they did. To say, like, hey, I don't think this is the best fit. I'm going to find another therapist to try out. That's totally fine.
Yes. And I love that you mentioned the determining factor in like outcomes being that, like, I just don't feel like if you're not jiving with somebody, or like you're not like
Yeah.
finding, like you don't flow with them, or you don't feel like we connect or we vibe,
Mm-hmm.
of course it's not gonna,
Yeah.
you're not gonna, I feel like it's like the same as friendship. Like we have certain friends that we like
Yeah.
go confide in on a deeper level, and
Yeah.
we have friends that we don't confide in on a deeper
Yeah.
level. And I'm not saying you should be besties with your therapist
Right.
necessarily, but I do think you should have like almost in a way feel like you could be friends.
Right. Like we have a connection.
Yes.
Yes.
And we can explore these things together, and I don't feel judged,
Yeah.
and I feel like I can really say anything and be,
Yeah.
you know, um be received or questioned or talked to in a way that's productive to my growth and
Yeah.
my health and my overall evolution as a person.
Yes, for sure. That's a
Yeah.
very important piece. So, should we talk about, or just start out talking about what makes a good therapist? Like just some qualities to kind of look for if you're like in the first few sessions, some things that are like, oh, okay, yes, this seems like a good fit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, the first thing that's coming to mind is literally like the warmth aspect of like, are they someone who's like easy to talk to, creating the space, having like good dialogue, and it's not just like kind of like the conversations sometimes that are just awkward where it's like, okay, say something, like,
Yeah.
you know, and sometimes there's like, it's important to like hold space for silence and stuff like that, but it should feel easy in a way, like in terms of the conversation, and it should feel safe. Like the therapist for you should feel like a safe space to be able to share, I mean, really vulnerable things. And
Totally.
it's usually pretty clear at the beginning if you're not getting that feeling from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you want someone who's engaged and like
Yes.
present with you, fully
Yes.
there, not like kind of withdrawn or like, like, oh, just like going through the
Yeah.
script or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is such an important part as well. Another thing is like, um, sort of, I think that this is like an underrated one, but, or not one that people maybe think of right off the bat, but is someone who's like, is got aligned values in the sense that what they're bringing to your healing journey is aligned with like what you would like to have on your healing journey. For example, an example of this would be like, um, I'm just going to use this example because it's like, it's
Mm-hmm.
top of mind, but if you're someone who's like really looking for like someone who's equipped in like EMDR or like mindfulness or like, you want to bring a level of like presence to your life,
Mm-hmm.
and they are supportive of that versus maybe someone who's like a little bit more like technical or like
Mm-hmm.
medication driven, that's going to
Yeah.
be misalignment.
Yeah.
So finding like the aligned person that is going to support whatever it is that you want um in your journey.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's like, I want someone who's really good at unpacking like these things and has the tools to help me become more present or mindful or grounded or have nervous system regulation or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that they actually offer what you're looking for.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And we'll talk about how to find
Yes.
that when we talk about how to find a therapist, but that's such a good point. And if you've never been to therapy before, you might not know exactly what you're looking for. And so maybe that's reaching out to friends or family who have been to therapy or who know something about the whole process to just kind of like get some input on like, hey, what should I look for?
Yeah.
But I think that's so important. And that's when I was looking for a therapist last year, like a new therapist starting from scratch. Those are things that I was looking for. I wanted someone who did like somatic work and values based and some other things. And so looking for someone who specifically mentions that on their website of like, this is the actual approach, the therapeutic approach that I'm taking, knowing that I'm going to enter the session and have some structure that feels aligned with what I'm looking for.
Totally. I love
So
that.
important.
Yeah, so important. Similar experience when I found my therapist of like, of reading through a lot of bios
Mm-hmm.
and being like, okay, like, maybe that. But when I read hers, my current therapist's bio, it was like, it was just so aligned of like, okay, actually that's
Mm-hmm.
what I really am trying to like bring into my life. And,
Yeah.
there are people like, there are so many different types of therapists as well, like
Mm-hmm.
from people who are more religious based, people who are more
Mm-hmm.
like spiritually based, people who are, focusing more on somatics,
Mm-hmm.
EMDR. Like there's so many different like
Mm-hmm.
styles, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, definitely just making sure that you're researching these people and
Yeah.
not just like pulling a name out of a hat. And then maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. And if it
Yeah.
doesn't, being like, oh, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's another thing is, in finding a good therapist is like not it's being committed to the journey, not being committed to like writing it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being willing to like stick it out, even if it's a little challenging, like finding what's going to actually work for you.
Yes.
This one's a little boring, but I do think it matters, especially if you've never been to therapy before, is at least for a short period in the first session, a big green flag is if your therapist actually goes over like their ethical and legal obligations of like the structure of
A
therapy.
session.
Yeah. And the documentation. If you're using insurance, some of that information gets shared with your insurance company. They have to diagnose if you're using an insurance company. Like the obligations that they have as a therapist, I think, especially if you've never been to therapy, it's important for a therapist to like go over those things. Mandatory reporting, what kind of information would they have to share if you disclose to them? Like, those are important things.
Absolutely. The housekeeping of it all.
Yes. And that shouldn't be the whole first session. That would be insane, but just like a couple minutes at the beginning to go over the housekeeping.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like it can be a quick summary, you know, of like, okay, and like before we dive in, I just have to like make sure you understand these things. And absolutely, I've been seeing my therapist on and off for the last 10 years. And when I tell you, she still, like to this day, and I love her for this because it's like so funny. She still, every time like certain things come up, she's like, okay, and I just want to clarify because, you know, like this is different than that. And if it is this, then like, I'm not saying we need to like call this person or that person. But if it is that, like that would be the next step. So I'm just I'm taking your temperature. Where are you at? And I love that she does that because like, yes, that's her obligation. That's the oath she took. And she's still, even though obviously I know we've been seeing each other a long time, she knows what I'm going to communicate. It's like that actually is her recreating the container, reminding of like what's going on. I know I was like super vague there, but like you guys get it. It's doing the ethical like housekeeping that therapists should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If they're not doing that, that I think would be a bit of a red flag.
Absolutely. Yeah. Is there anything else of like qualifying?
Oh, I was thinking a big green flag is like a therapist that is able to kind of like challenge you or low key call you out on some of your bullshit in like a kind and loving, like a healthy way. And I think that's part of like building that rapport and connection is slowly working up to this point where you feel safe enough to receive that feedback from them of like, hey, you're saying that this person does that, but like, aren't you doing that too?
Totally.
You know, or like whatever the situation is, or calling you out on behaviors that are just like unacceptable, but doing it in a way that's like therapeutically appropriate. Obviously, you should never feel attacked during a therapy session. But
I love that you said that because the red flag is a therapist who never challenges you or makes you feel uncomfortable or
affirms everything you
say and like is like, oh, I get it. Like, you know, just is not questioning you or pushing you back at all. No, literally, hilariously enough, I actually had therapy before I came here today. And
you're like primed.
I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
And she literally said to me, actually, we were having a conversation and she asked a question that was really important to ask. And it made me be like, oh, wait a second. That's me. I'm doing this. Oh, wait a second. I'm like,
God, therapists are so crafty, huh?
Oh no, totally. Like I literally, she was like, so wait, I don't even remember how she framed it, but she asked me the question and it was like an aha moment of like, oh wait, like I'm trying to project this out on like, and she's like, who is this coming from? And I was like, wait, no one. I actually don't, I don't know. And she was like, say that again.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't know. And then we like had our little moment of like, oh, and then me realizing like, oh, actually this is just like my own projection and my own, I've made this up.
Yeah.
And not in a way of like, I'm not gaslighting myself out of a feeling or an experience. That's not what it is.
But we do make stories up.
We like totally do.
Stories about ourselves or other people and run with it.
Oh, 100%. Or like, in this case, it was like, how, like me deciding who's perceiving me. And then when it's like, oh, well, who is perceiving you? Like what backlash or what judgment is there? And then when I literally didn't have a single name to name.
Yeah.
Because when I'm down on the ground and I'm actually like, in reality, none of these people are like sitting there with their magnifying glass waiting for me to do something and
Yeah.
dissect it, because that's insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so it that is such an important thing. And I know people, or I've heard of people who have had relationships with their therapist where it's actually, there's never questioning,
Mhm.
or like I have heard I've heard stories of people sharing maybe their experience in therapy and how like, oh, I love my therapist, she's so cool, she's so great, I love her, or they're amazing.
Mhm.
And they're not, um you know oh, well, what do they say about this struggle you're having?
Yeah.
Oh, they totally get it, they struggle with it too, and like, the
Yeah.
way I'm coping with it is fine.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
Mhm.
but are you actually fine? And
Mhm.
is this the result you're wanting? Like, do you want to stay in this space, or are you wanting to evolve out of it? Like, what is
Mhm.
your, I think that's another thing is like, in qualifying a therapist, is what's your end goal as the person going to therapy? Because
Mhm.
if it's to just like get it out and to like word vomit it up
Mhm.
and not like change anything,
Mhm.
you're going to want to, you're going to want to evaluate the type of therapist you get based on that. Because if it's not like growth or change oriented, then
Mhm.
it might
Yeah.
not,
Yeah, you should always be working toward something, some sort of end goal, some sort of growth in your life, overcoming some sort of obstacle. Or maybe you're going for a mental health diagnosis and you're like, I want to learn how to cope with this better and like live a normal life,
yeah.
like yeah, there should be some sort of an end goal, not just like perpetually, going through the same stories over and over, or just going to get affirmation. And the example you used of like, oh yeah, it's totally normal, I go through that too, like no big deal. Huge red flag.
No, huge red flag.
Yeah.
When that was shared with me, I was like, wait, what? Wait, who?
Yeah.
What? No, exactly. And I was just thinking too, like, we should talk about, I don't know if that's on our list, but like talking about why people go to therapy. Like, what are some reasons that people might go to
Yeah, we
therapy?
should talk about that.
Yeah,
Let's do that
because
before red
yeah,
flags.
absolutely. Because as you were saying that, I was thinking about how some people are going to therapy to unpack trauma from their childhood
Yeah.
or a traumatic experience they've had.
Mhm.
And that is going to look a lot different than someone who's going to therapy to like make a big life change, or who's just like feeling lost and just needs like some support and
Mhm.
direction.
Yeah.
Or, there's so many different reasons we go to therapy.
Yeah. Yeah, you could be going for, you mentioned like a life change, and that could be like a huge life change. It could be something like a good life change. When I got married, had a therapy appointment scheduled. Like I was like, I'm going to find a new therapist because like this is a huge life change for me. And I was also struggling with anxiety at the time. I was like, I think I just need some support. Like I'm so excited to be married and to like, take this next step in life. But also like it's going to be nice to have like support and perspective and guidance and all of that. And so it can be a scary life change, or it can be like these little things that are even like positive. Maybe you're experiencing anxiety, maybe you're feeling a little lost in life like you mentioned. Maybe you're going through like some relationship challenges, and maybe your partner isn't willing to go to therapy, but you're like, oh, I want to work on myself, which is amazing. There's so many reasons to go to therapy. And I think one misconception that I've heard a few times from people personally, and then of course online too, is like, in order to go to therapy, you have to be in like some big crisis, or like something has to be like so wrong with you. And that's just not true. Like people are going to therapy for all sorts of reasons.
No, absolutely. I
So
mean,
yeah.
yeah, and it's another thing too that can like come and go. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a forever thing. It might just literally be like, I really need extra support to like get through this experience or to understand this. And then after that is like kind of at completion, maybe you say like, okay, I'm going to step away for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I think like I'm feeling good right now and I'm
Yeah.
going to not do this for a while. And
Yeah.
then maybe that changes again down the road or
Yeah.
whatever. But one thing I was thinking about too is like, when you were saying the crisis piece, because I do think people like think it has to be like this big
Yeah.
experience. Sometimes people are going to therapy because they're like, okay, I've like avoided this thing that I know
Mm-hmm.
long enough, and it's time that I sit with this. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to sit with things on our own, and when we don't have the understanding or the capacity or the tools,
Mm-hmm.
um to like move through something,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then it can be nice to just get that other person like, okay, like let's talk about this thing that,
Mm-hmm.
I've been carrying around for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that came to mind too is some people go to therapy to become better communicators,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's at work, whether that's at home, to themselves. I mean, there's so many reasons.
There are. I was also thinking about how you might go to therapy for a specific thing at first, and then you start uncovering other things that you didn't even realize were there
Mm-hmm.
or you didn't anticipate talking about. And sometimes that can be so amazing and healing. And sometimes if you find yourself, diving into too much too fast for yourself, you get to be able to like press the brakes on that and say, like, hey, like, I'm glad we uncovered this thing, this trauma, this experience, this belief that I have, whatever it is. I don't really feel ready to like take that head on yet. And that's totally fine to say, because
Absolutely.
sometimes I think it can almost be more damaging, more triggering, and like more dysregulating to your nervous system to unpack all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes people think that they have to do that at the start of therapy. I remember clients just working in the addiction treatment field when they were receiving mental health therapy. They just felt like they had to like trauma dump on the first few sessions, and it ended up being so dysregulating for them. And it's like, no, 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 like, let's not do that because it's too
Yeah.
much too fast.
No,
So
absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
yeah.
And something too that's like coming to mind if you're a parent listening is there are therapists that are better to work with children and
Yes. Yeah.
or better to work with families than others, and that's a that's actually my introduction to therapy was through a family therapist and who's like
Mm-hmm.
specialized with children, because the environment I was growing up in, we just like my mom needed help. She was like, I need someone else to like help me figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to give these kids tools to like navigate these real life things like addiction, like,
Mm-hmm.
stress or dysregulated communication and things like that. And so if you're a parent listening, that's actually just came to mind as something to throw out there of, maybe you're not looking for a therapy for your or looking for a therapist for yourself. You're looking for your family, for your
Mm-hmm.
child who's struggling. Maybe you don't have the tools to help your child through something.
Mm-hmm.
That's where a therapist is so important.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't remember how I felt going to therapy as an adolescent. I think I was like an early adolescence, not like in my late teens. But as an adult, I can look back and say like, oh, I'm so glad I did have that experience, because as an adult, it like set the foundation or the stage to know like, okay, I know the process. Like I know that I can go get help. And yeah, it probably gave me some tools.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like, I feel like the reason therapy is so like destigmatized for myself and also maybe like generationally for us
Mm-hmm.
is because like it was being talked about more when we were kids.
Yeah.
But when you go as a kid, like I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure I was like pretty excited about it. I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
thank God, finally some fucking
Mm-hmm.
relief in this place. Like,
Yeah.
and I was in third grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I had really bad anxiety. And so finally, like I felt like we would all go. Like my mom would get like my sisters and myself like in the
Mm-hmm.
car, and we'd like spend like 3 hours in Astoria,
Just back-to-back
back to back
appointments.
appointments.
Yeah.
And my mom would like sit in on, part of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how my sisters felt because they were a little old, they were older than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they were in their teens, but I do remember actually having someone like helping me understand anxiety and like what I
Mm-hmm.
was
Yeah.
struggling with and how to like actually do stuff about it other than like be hysterical, because I would like get
Yeah.
very worked up. And also like it gave my mom just like that extra support,
Yeah.
and that was so needed. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good point to bring up. Definitely, if you're listening and you have kiddos, it's such a good resource for kids.
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
And
Yeah,
again, it doesn't have to be for like a major thing. It's just like a great resource.
totally.
Yeah.
Being a kid is hard. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think about like going through puberty, being a teenager, all of those things. It's just sometimes it's really nice to like have someone to
Mm-hmm.
help your to help you navigate. And the third party of it all is so important. I think when we're too close to situations, it can be so hard to like give sound advice or to not take things personally or to feel like helpless almost. And so that's kind of like one of those things where, oh, actually a therapist would be perfect for this experience because,
just offers a new perspective and guidance and reveals things that you didn't even anticipate being revealed.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we talk about red flags now?
Oh my gosh, let's do it. Red flags.
I feel like we could give so many examples based on things that we hear from others, things that we see. I've seen posts on social media about people talking about like their therapy experience. One that I think is an important one to share is this person was talking about how their therapist started like getting mad at them about like things that they were not sharing and like having to reschedule appointments for very reasonable reasons. Like it was a whole story about what was happening, and there were a lot of therapists in the comments that were like, this is insane projection, and also it almost feels like your therapist is like in love with you. Like this is a weird situation. So I think like if you're feeling like something's off,
it probably
is.
Yeah.
If you're feeling like, your therapist is being like possessive or getting angry with you, which I'm just like trying to even imagine that happening. That's crazy to me to even think about. Those are huge red flags.
Yeah. Those are huge red flags. And also, like, first of all, I'm like, what? That's crazy. But I mean, I think, okay, I'm going to go ahead and say the thing. I don't know if I should say this or if it's like,
do it.
But I think that there are probably, unfortunately, like some people in the industry that shouldn't be in the industry or like not qualified to be
100%.
in the industry. Like,
yes.
there
are a lot of people who should be reported.
Oh, 100%. And like, sometimes I'm like, wait, where did you get your degree?
Yeah.
Purdue online.
Yeah.
Babe.
Who let you in here?
I know, who the fuck? No, seriously, because I have heard some really crazy stories. And like you said, like from people in my own life or online. And there are some interesting ones. I love the red flags you just gave. Something that's coming to mind on that is like, if your therapist is like, if it feels more like, if you're going in a circle and you're not really like getting tools or any like actionable results, or like this person isn't actually helping you grow, and like a therapy session should have the quality of a container, right? Like there's a container around this situation. We're entering a space together. We're talking about stuff. We're unpacking, dissecting, whatever. And then when we exit that container, like it's closed up.
Yeah.
That is how it should feel in my mind. If your therapist, if it feels like you're calling your bestie and like chit-chatting it up, like almost too casual, or like they're signing off on harmful behavior or not encouraging you to get help with certain things and just being like, oh, like it's no big deal. That's a red flag in my mind.
For sure. Absolutely. Also too much self-disclosure. And that's one of those things that's like, people have different opinions on like how much self-disclosure is okay, if any, and some people are way more conservative than others, but like you should not know your therapist's entire life story. Like being able to, like, if your therapist shares things with you, little things from time to time to kind of normalize the situation, or maybe at the very beginning for like rapport building, totally fine. But if you're spending any part of your therapy session hearing about what they're going through in their life, and having to almost like caretake them, or just learning about things that are like, okay, well, that's a little too much information, or now I'm taking on their emotional baggage and feeling like I have to caretake my therapist. That's not good. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like if what they're sharing with you gives to your experience or is like helping like tie into like your growth or your journey,
it needs to add value.
Yeah, it has to add value. If it doesn't, if it's just like, oh my God, let me tell you about this one time.
Yeah.
What? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think like it can be interesting, you know, if you've had a relationship with a therapist for a long time, obviously, like you get to know more about one another
Mhm.
because it's like, well, I've been talking to you for 10 years,
Right.
little things have
Yeah.
come out or whatever. Um, but I think that that's a lot different than what you're talking about here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to like make that distinction because, yeah, like I know someone personally who has shared a little bit about their therapy journey and they like love their therapist. But when I like hear them talk about it, it really makes me nervous because I'm just worried that they're not getting the support that they need for like what they're
Mm.
experiencing in life. And, um, and that's like something I want our listeners to know is
Mhm.
like, you should you should feel like you're actually getting a result. If you have been seeing someone for a long period of time and you're not like you don't have the tools, the insight, the understanding or whatever you set out to get from point A to like where you are today and it's been an extended period of time,
Mhm.
like that is a red flag,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, there should be some growth and knowing like if assuming it's like a safe situation to do this, being able to say like, "Hey, I'm feeling really stagnant. Like I don't feel
Yes.
like I feel lost or scattered or like whatever it is that you're feeling." And that ideally in a good situation would be met with like, "Okay, I hear you. Let's figure out like what we want to like what direction we
We
want
want to
to go
go.
in or what approach we want to take." Or the therapist saying like, yeah, I can see how you would be feeling that way. And I actually think that maybe we can look at, other therapists and I can offer some suggestions on like different modalities that you might benefit from. That's okay. But yeah, if your therapist is just like totally fine with no progress being made
Yeah.
and almost like going through the motions, like you mentioned at the beginning of the episode of just like doing the bare minimum, yikes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
that's a big red flag. I'm trying to think what are some other red flags? Like
Hmm.
I think one thing that's coming to mind is like the boundaries and borders of your relationship.
Mm.
Like I think that this again, hey, it's nuanced in the sense that like depending on what you're dealing with or working through, like sometimes that does require if you're moving through something like really heavy or there's like a crisis happening,
Hmm.
if your therapist says like, hey, you can contact me on my work phone if X, Y, and Z comes up.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I found like maybe they are like, I found this resource and I thought you might find this to be interesting and shares
Mhm.
that with you. But if
Yeah.
you're like chit chatting, texting it up, like, hey, what are you up to today? Oh, nothing. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of like, that's strange to me.
Yeah, that would not be good. That would be reportable, actually. And also on that note, it's like the relationship, and this isn't on the client, but on the therapist, like it would be a red flag if they knew that they had like a pre-existing relationship with you, like a friendship
Oh,
or
yeah.
family, or oh, I used to see your relative. Like those are,
Conflicts.
yes, those are like they have an ethical obligation to not see you. And
Yes.
especially in today's world, like I think once upon a time, living in a rural space like we do, there would have been some exceptions that would be made for situations like that because there's only so many options for in-person therapists. But now, when we have so many options for, telehealth therapy, which maybe we can talk about that a little bit too, but you don't have to say yes to people that are like crossing some sort of an ethical obligation.
No, absolutely. That's
Yeah.
actually, I love that you said that. That's a huge one. Like I actually have found that this is really interesting. Couples that go to therapy, it's
Hmm.
actually better, from my understanding, is to find like a neutral third party, not pre-existing therapists,
Yeah.
because like you've developed a relationship with your like to a degree. We develop
They're
relationships with
like on your team,
they're on your
biased
team
towards you. Yeah.
100%. And so if you're trying to like actually like come together as a couple, get some growth, get some like
Yeah.
you need that neutral third party who like is meeting you both for the first time and can objectively look at you and say like, okay, like I noticed this and I noticed this and or
Yeah.
here's what I'm seeing or here's what not years of pre-existing.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good one to highlight. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, that's very important. And that's a little bit of a distinction too of like if you're actually going to like marriage or couples counseling, like you want to find a therapist who's actually a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in that. That would be like an ideal situation. There are times like when I had just gotten married and I was seeing a therapist, we I think had one or maybe two sessions where Adam came in for a session, and it was made very clear that like this is not couples counseling. This is specifically for me to be able to process through a couple different things and to like get on the same page with a few things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to be like an ongoing thing. And so there's like, and
And
again,
that
I
makes
think that's like a
sense.
very ethical way of dealing with it.
Yeah.
But on the note of couples counseling and red flags, just some things that we've talked about probably months ago at this point for red flags is like if your therapist is encouraging you to like separate or telling you like you need to separate or divorce or try an open relationship, or like if they're trying to dictate what you're doing in your relationship, huge red flag. Oh my goodness.
Yes, with the exception of your safety. That's the only,
yes,
I know like exactly if you're being harmed and they're encouraging you to leave, babe.
Yes,
that's a different thing.
Yes.
But if it's just a values difference, and I love that you said that too, because it's also like based on if you set a boundary with your therapist and you say like, hey, I want to talk about these things. Here's what I'm not willing to do.
Yeah.
And you set that boundary and they push that boundary and they like try to, that's not necessarily the greatest approach. I think being curious about it and asking like a question is a lot different than like, you need to leave. Or also, no, this is not shade to anybody, but that's crazy if someone is like, well, have you thought about trying an open relationship? If that'd be crazy. What?
It would be crazy, wouldn't it? But people are out there doing that. So I don't know.
That's hilarious.
It's really, it's wild out there.
I'm dying. What?
Yeah. So I don't know. There's probably more red flags.
Oh, for
I feel
sure.
like that's a pretty good list.
That's a good list. I feel like that's a good list. I'm sure there's more that we're missing, but like
if you're questioning anything, then it's probably a red flag. If something feels off to you, like listen to your intuition.
Yes.
Maybe ask a friend, maybe ask someone that you trust. But for the most part, I think we generally know when it's like, ooh, that like doesn't hit right.
Yeah, absolutely. And trust your gut. And also like just honestly, I would say like have the conversation with your therapist, and how that conversation goes will be telling, right? About the situation, because like if the therapist is aligned and supportive and it's a good therapist, a green flag therapist, the conversation's going to go beautifully. Like, and then it's going to be like, oh my gosh, like, okay, that feels a lot better. If it feels at all like, ugh, or like misunderstood or, then that is your answer. I feel like.
Yes.
Yeah. Should we talk about what to expect in a session?
Yes. So I feel like every session, every therapist might approach things a little differently. But in general, like we talked about, the first session might include like just some housekeeping on like what to expect. And that is actually the point where I think the therapist has the opportunity to kind of like set the stage of like, this is how long our sessions are. This is kind of what to expect. And especially in the first session, it's probably a lot more open-ended of like, tell me a little bit about yourself, and asking some maybe more specific questions as you go. But it's like an opportunity to get to know who you are as the client and what it is, like what direction you want to go in. And that's the first like few sessions of like really understanding like who are you before we start moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, it is. It's like the get to know, right? Yeah, exactly. And then moving forward from there, right? Like once you have kind of, and it might be like the first couple sessions, depending on like how specific your goals and needs are as the client. Getting to know each other could take more than, I mean, obviously it's going to take more than one 50-minute session with like some housekeeping and stuff. But if your goal or your intention is like more specific, then from there, like sessions might be a little bit more clarified and refined.
Yeah.
But typically, like, and I'm actually really curious about this, for just to hear like your
Mhm.
perspective as well. But you know, typically it's like you come in at the beginning of the hour, like, hey, like, or, you know, if it's in person, I feel like it's a tiny bit different. Like, come on in, sit down, like,
Get
get
settled.
settled.
Yeah.
Like, how's it going? Talk to me. And then from there, it unfolds online. It's a little bit more like, hello, like, good to see you, whatever. And then, like, so how are you?
Yeah, you kind of dive right in
You do
online.
online.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like so much more like, so what's up?
Yeah.
And then from
Yeah.
there, it's like, um, if you're less comfortable divulging information, that's where a therapist might ask more questions or like
Yeah.
try to move the conversation along so that you can get somewhere. If you are really good at divulging information, when they say, so what's up or how are you? That might be where it's like, well, here's what's going on.
Hmm.
And then like we're right in.
Yeah.
And I think that also comes with time, comfortability,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
you know, uh, what's on your heart that day. Cause like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been back in therapy with my therapist for maybe 6 months now. I don't think it's been that long, but I don't know. And in that time, oh no, it hasn't been. It was like December. Geez.
Mm.
So in that time, like there have been sessions where it's like I am less, maybe it's like less obvious what we're going to talk about or like
Hmm.
work through,
Yeah.
right? So in those sessions, it might like start a little bit slower and we're inching away at things,
Yeah.
as to where other sessions, it's like, I am struggling with this, or like this is what's happening, and
Yeah.
we're going right in onto the journey,
Yeah.
right? So that's kind of like the loose structure. They're 50-minute hours typically.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a good point that every session for you might look a little different based on what you're bringing to the session. Like sometimes, and I same, like being able to show up to a session and be like, I don't really know like what I want to cover today. And my therapist will sometimes bring up like, here's where we left off last time,
Mm-hmm.
and so that'll kind of prompt some thoughts around that and what's happened over the last couple of weeks and diving into that. And then there's other times where it's like, okay, this thing happened and I want to like really dissect this. This year was interesting for me because it was like I started therapy maybe 3 months before the end of the year last year, and then I had my eye issue that was happening, and like everything changed for me, like the direction and like where I was wanting to head in therapy. I was like, oh, okay, but yeah, I'm like having a medical crisis right now. And like, I just feel like this is the only thing that I can think about right now. And so,
Yeah.
like, having a therapist that's able to like kind of go on that journey with you and be flexible.
Yeah.
And also, what's been really helpful for me is even feeling a little bit like kind of all over the map sometimes, having my therapist remind me like, here's the thread through all of this. Like there's this underlying current that remains the same through like all these different experiences or all these different things that I'm bringing to session. And so um yeah, it's going to look a little different each time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 50 minutes you mentioned, which is pretty average. And then frequency is usually like every other week, but sometimes it's more frequent. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's every week. Sometimes people will go a couple times a week. At the beginning, that I think can start to feel overwhelming, but
Yeah.
sometimes people need extra support in the beginning.
No,
So,
totally. I think it's so dependent on whatever's happening for you.
yeah.
I I go through phases of like every other week or every week depending on
Mm-hmm.
exactly like what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um there have been moments where I'm like, no, we'll keep the every other week, and then I'm in the week where I'm on my off week and I'm like, wow, I really fucking wish I could talk to her right now, you know?
Yeah.
Or like if something's coming up and you're needing some extra support,
Yeah.
definitely. I feel like going multiple times a week is reserved for like some intense
Yes.
circumstances or
Yeah.
like more challenging
Mm-hmm.
circumstances, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, exactly. And then like the way that it ends is usually like depending on your situation. I mean, I used to end mine. My therapist would love this right now if I was talking about this because she would tease me a little bit in a very, you guys, I love my therapist. I love her so much. I feel so blessed to have like found the therapist that I found and to have gone on this like 10-year journey with her almost. On and off, like, you know, gone years without seeing each other and then come back to her and things like that. She's truly like, she's very special to me. But when I first started seeing her, I was like this 21-year-old child running around Los Angeles, and I was writing checks to pay for it. So in 2018.
That's so funny because I did the same thing with my therapist at the time.
Yeah, and
at 21 years old.
And she would literally be like, "Did you know you're the only fucking person with a checkbook in LA County?"
That's so funny.
She didn't say the F word. I'm adding that. But she would be like, "Can I just say that I love that you're writing a check right now?" And I'd be like, "Wait, really? People don't write you checks?" She'd be like, "Nobody writes me a check."
That is so
She's
funny.
like, "Babe, I got a credit card machine right behind you." Like, what?
I love a good checkbook though.
I was like, well, this is like what I have.
Yeah,
like, you know what
so
I mean?
funny.
I had a card too, but I was like, no, the check is better.
Yeah.
So I was like writing a check, and that's how we ended it. It was like, okay, I'll see you next week. Here's your check. Some people might like get you set up on a automatic payment situation to where it's just like, okay, like it's good to see you. Goodbye. Like when you're on Zoom, it's great. It's like, all right, bye. It's over. You know what I mean? Goodbye. The screen goes black.
There should be some form of closure at the end of each session. And again, that'll look different for each therapist and each circumstance. But you should not leave the session feeling like super dysregulated and like you're struggling. Like your therapist, they're in charge of managing the time and helping the session kind of wind down. Yeah. And so you should, at the end of each session, maybe you're feeling a little activated just from some of the stuff you talked about, but you shouldn't be feeling like you're in a crisis at the end of a session.
Totally.
That would be a problem, and your therapist should be the one who's like stepping in to help you through that.
And if you're a person who like it takes you a moment to feel comfortable to like divulge something, like one thing I caught myself doing before, I haven't done this for a while, but I used to have like the pattern of like in the like last 10 minutes like bringing up like the bombshell and being like, okay, well, this is like really not this actually is like we need more time to talk about this. So either like how a therapist would handle that, like a good therapist would handle that, is being like, okay, this is what I want to dive into next week. We really need to talk about this. Or saying like, okay, you know, depending on the situation, the circumstance, obviously there's contributing factors, saying like, okay, let's talk, you know, we have 10 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about that. But this feels like a really big thing for us to
like I want to have enough space
for this. Exactly. I think that's really important to just like note, is like, hey, also as ourselves, as the person seeking therapy, like making sure we're not, you know, if you're like the bombshell in the last 5 minutes where the therapist is like, wait, what? Like, and then you're like, gosh, I feel like a little dysregulated, or I feel like I'm going out of here incomplete. Well, maybe you should bring these things up a little earlier in session. I had to learn that, you know, for myself, because like, you know,
it's giving yourself enough time
to process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point.
One thing we haven't talked about that's been on my mind a little bit, especially when we were talking about red flags, is like in the world of apps, like BetterHelp, not to like name drop, I don't know if we're allowed to do that. There's other ones, I don't know what they're called, where you can find a therapist online from like this like cache of therapists, is, you know, with those things, I don't know a ton about them, but I have heard a lot of controversy about them.
Same, yeah.
And I have heard people's experiences not being super great, in the sense that like, come to find out like the person wasn't licensed, or like wasn't an actual, wasn't qualified. That's like something I think can be a red flag. I know that like resource wise, BetterHelp is like a great resource for getting people help out in the world that need it.
Yeah.
And also like part of our duty as humans who are using apps like this, is if there is like an ethical or like concern, or if you're not doing your own research to like vet this person as qualified, you know, like we need to be doing the research, and also like if there is an issue, reporting that, because I have heard some like really crazy BetterHelp stories on the internet.
Yeah, I've seen some controversy around it as well. So yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up is, there's other options outside of something like BetterHelp. I think Headspace or something like that is another
Yeah.
one. Yeah, there's different big apps that have like a huge library of therapists to choose from. But should we talk about telehealth versus in person before we look at like how to find a
Yeah, that's a
therapist?
good one.
Because something like BetterHelp is strictly telehealth, but you can of course find a telehealth therapist outside of that too. I was really hesitant to actually have like a virtual. That's what I mean by telehealth, like a
Yeah.
virtual therapist where you're seeing them over video. Because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like feel as connected. Like you miss out on some of the like physical cues, like the body language cues and just the energy of the person in some ways. But I've actually been totally fine with the whole process. It's been better than I expected, I think.
Yeah.
I think I love the idea of like going into an office and like having the actual in person experience around it. But the telehealth therapy experience has actually been really good so far.
I love
So,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think it is like dependent on a lot of factors, right? Like I feel like, you're someone who's comfortable with the concept of therapy. If you're like more uncomfortable
Yeah.
with it, it might like I have, heard that like the telehealth element can be like either more comfortable because it's like a little bit removed, or
Yeah.
more uncomfortable because you're like not sure how like what to do with
Yes.
yourself
Yeah.
on the call, or like how to like be.
Yeah. That
And
makes sense.
I think that's like part of to the like trusting the process a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
because if it's an unfamiliar or like new thing to like be on Zoom or whatever,
Yeah.
um yeah, that's like at first it's like, oh god, what the fuck.
Yeah.
But trusting the process, like it will eventually feel a little bit better. And also like if you're a person who is really nervous about the in-person factor and wants that like
Mm-hmm.
comfortability of being in your own space or your own home, that can be really,
It
that can be,
reduces the barriers for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
To
that can,
accessing care.
yeah, exactly. And that can be like a thing to be like, okay, actually, I think I want to try this
Yeah.
instead
Mm-hmm.
because it might be more comfortable or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've been doing telehealth for a while now, because I used to do in person way back in the day when I lived in LA. And then when I moved, we switched to telehealth, and the parameters of our relationship changed a little bit because I'm no longer a citizen of California.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it had to shift a little bit to
Mm.
like from like psycho talk therapy to
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness support.
Mm.
Which, these
Yeah.
like these little legal terms, if you will. But you know, I don't know if I have a preference. I think I just remember this is hilarious when you were talking about like the idea of going into the office. I was thinking about like what it was like to go into therapy. I did love it at that time because I really needed it, and it was like a nice like I felt like this like wayward like teenage child, even though I was in my early 20s, like going into this space where um I was just like being received by like all these like mothers and like grounded women, and it felt really
Mm-hmm.
safe and supportive. But I just remember sweating so much. Like I would just be like sweating the whole fucking time.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing I can honestly say I'm not doing on telehealth. Like my armpits are not like a
Yeah.
river,
Yeah. No,
which is
I feel
hilarious.
that. Yeah.
I'm like, wait,
That might be a universal experience.
like you will sweat.
Yeah.
But that's just because it's vulnerable.
Yes, for sure. Um, well, let's talk about how to find a therapist. I think there's a couple different paths, and I'll just go through like I think a clear path if you're using insurance,
Yeah.
but like phase two of this is also relevant if you don't have insurance. But I think the easiest way if you plan to use insurance is to literally like log into your insurance portal or call the insurance company, and there's a whole directory of like in-network
People,
therapists,
yeah,
yeah, who are
providers.
all like vetted, qualified, they're licensed, etc. And then from there you can either just like call and schedule or find their website and schedule. I like to then go to Psychology Today to actually like see a picture of them and like read their bio and actually find their website and like
Yeah.
get a feel for who this person is, because a lot of times through insurance portals you're just getting their name. There's no picture, like you don't get a sense of who the person actually is.
Yeah.
And so doing a little bit of research on Psychology Today, there's probably other websites out there. I just feel like Psychology Today is very easy to use. And yeah, then being able to actually reach out and schedule, like maybe if they offer a free consult, like a 15-minute phone call or something like that to see if it feels like a good fit, and making a decision from there. You could also skip the insurance part and just use psychologytoday.com, and they have all sorts of filters like what we talked about at the beginning of like, I want someone who specializes in trauma, or I want someone who specializes in working with children and teens, or
Yeah.
anxiety or bipolar disorder, or whatever it is that you're looking for. You can filter through all of that to kind of like curate what therapist you're looking for. So
No, totally.
it's fairly straightforward once you have the resources to like get you started.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly like with my own experience, it's like a lot of Googling, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of like getting online, reading a lot because you want to qualify the person and make sure that they're a good fit for you. And that's exactly what I would recommend too, is like, I like you kind of want to see it. I mean, I feel like you want, because you want to know what to
Yeah.
expect. You want to know who you're walking in to meet. And
Yeah.
so like being able to know about them and what they offer, who they are, their vibe, their whole thing.
Yeah.
And then also like seeing helps.
Yes.
And also this just came to mind, like what gender you're more comfortable sitting with. Like,
Yeah.
some, like for me personally, like I've never seen a male therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I've only seen women, and uh I would be just more comfortable, like most comfortable with a woman. But if you're a guy seeking therapy, maybe you would be more comfortable with a man, or maybe you actually would be more comfortable with a woman. Like those kinds of things, you're going to find that when you're researching who they are, the vibe, all of that. But yeah, I don't remember I'm sure it was like Psychology Today was the website, but it's been so long since I've
Mm-hmm.
like gone and searched. Also, depending on like if you live in a city versus a small town, like
Yeah.
it might be more saturated, your Google search. So using like the Therapy Today website can help filter, like, down, refine it down.
Yes. No, for sure. It's a good way to, especially if you do have so many options, to just narrow it down to what you're actually looking for. Or if you live in a really rural spot, you can see the limited amount of therapists you have in your area and choose to widen your search. If you're okay with telehealth therapy, there's so many options
Yes,
available.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And one thing that's coming to mind too is like therapy is an investment for sure. And going through insurance, of course, helps with that. And so like
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge thing to just mention for our listeners. If you're someone who is like thinking about therapy, or maybe you have a therapist, or maybe you're in the it's like something you haven't thought about, but this episode's making you think about it a little bit. Just like qualifying financially, like what that looks like for you and what is in your like scope of affordability, because some therapy is more expensive, some of it's more
Mm-hmm.
affordable. And if you don't have insurance, if you're uninsured and you're looking for that
Mm-hmm.
support, just knowing, like, making sure you're researching within that realm. Because
Yeah.
like I think anybody in the mental health profession or who values these things understands that like having access is really important. And also, you know, there are times where putting yourself in a more like financial strain in order to like have the help or receive the help is important. But also, like, you don't want to be like maybe necessarily like going into debt.
Yeah. And usually the pricing should be pretty transparent on
Oh yeah,
whether you're using insurance or private pay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most important, I feel like. Um
Well, anything else that we want to cover? I feel like this was such a good episode. This is so informative,
I
I
know
think.
this was information heavy, you
Yeah.
guys. No, I think that's everything. Yeah. If anybody has any questions for us, or like, if you in the comments or like, oh, this is, I would love to hear if your red flag,
Oh
your,
my gosh, yeah.
yeah, like, do you have any therapy red flags to share with us? Or, um, I mean, you can tell us a story. You can tell us a story. We want to hear. That
Yeah.
might be fun. But
Yes.
yeah, we're just we wanted to share this because I think we talk a lot about like mental health and help, but sometimes people might not actually even know where to begin looking for that. So
Hmm. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I hope this was helpful for you guys listening, and we will see you next week.